So today I wanted to start a series. I don't know how long the series will be, but recommending books from genres of books that I read before I was on booktube. So books that I have already read and loved, but I haven't really told you guys about it except maybe in a tag video because they weren't in wrap-ups or anything I've done because it was before booktube. And today I want to do my science fiction books that I would recommend or have enjoyed that I read before joining this wonderful community. I have a list of things. I went through my Goodreads and I put some out. Some I love way more than others, but I enjoyed them all well enough. They were all at least 3-star reads. And I thought I'd just talk about them with you guys because I think they deserve more attention from me because, like I said, since I joined booktube, I just haven't talked about them. So we're going to start with An Unkindness of Ghosts by Rivers Solomon. This is a sci-fi book that takes place in space on a ship where, if memory serves, there's still pretty much a prejudice against black people. It's definitely a hierarchy based off race. And our main character, I believe it's implied that, I believe this character is a she. I think it's her companion that's non-binary. There's great gender representation. I'm just blanking on where it is. But she works with her companion who can pass as more white to become a doctor to help the lower classes. I think she's also implied to be autistic or on the neurodiverse spectrum somewhere. And she discovers her mother's old journal and she's trying to piece together the ending of her mother's life. And it's that whole mystery and you learn a lot about this ship and where things are heading. I really need to reread this one. I can't find my copy. Well, it was my stepdad's copy that I stole to reread. I do that a lot. I give my parents books that I want to read later. But it's really good. Rivers Solomon is definitely a science fiction author that I will read anything from, and this is no exception. I highly recommend it, especially because of its rich representation. And I think it's a very character-driven, introspective book. I wouldn't say it's very plot-driven, based off my memory of it. And I can't remember really, I remember the ending, but I can't remember how I felt about it. But that can happen with me with a lot of sci-fi books, especially standalones like this. But that's another reason I want to reread it, to see how I'd feel about the ending now. The next one I want to talk about is The Light Brigade by Cameron Hurley. I really love this book. This is a sci-fi book I read like 2 years ago, and I still think about it. At the time, I actually thought it would be a flash in the pan. I was like, oh, that was fun. I'll never think about it again. I'm still thinking about it. This is a story about Dietz, who's in the military, and part of the military has this war, I think on Mars, and they can travel there quickly by decomposing into light and traveling over there. But that has some unintended side effects, so you have that mystery of these side effects, this whole jumbling of Dietz's experience. You learn a lot about this world, which is run more by corporations than by governments now. And, it's a classic military sci-fi where you are looking at it through the eyes of the more grunt infantrymen who's, not really in the know about all of the things going out and tries to, not think about what they're being asked to do too much. It's very good. I need to buy a copy of this book, but I really liked it. I think more people have been reading it this year, and I've been so excited, so that's also brought it to the front of my mind, but highly recommend The Light Brigade. It is non-linear in its storytelling, but I don't think it was that jarring. It's part of that mystery thriller portion of it. The next trilogy I'm going to talk to you about, or maybe saga, I don't know. I read all the books that currently exist in the Red Rising world. And, I did like it. I don't think it's the deepest thing in the world. I really liked the first trilogy. I know some people don't like how gratuitous it is. The author definitely does things that are kind of tired in terms of plot setup and tropes, but I really had a fun time. I like Darrow. Darrow's our main character. You get primarily his perspective. He is sneaking into the higher class, because this is a color-based system, so he was of the lower color, and he's sneaking in to pretend to be of the highest color. Basically try to tear down the system from within sort of idea. And so the first book is more of like a school setting, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that I never really knew what they were planning until it happened. I thought the trilogy wrapped up really well. I am still unsure of how I feel about the other books. Dark Age wore on me, because what I liked about the first trilogy is that it read really fast. I took those books on vacations, and I read them super quick. They were super engrossing, fast-paced. That's something I liked about it. And the Saga books have gotten way longer, and the pacing's gotten way more inconsistent. So I want to see how it ends before saying my final judgment. But Dark Age was very dark and very hard to read. And because it was the second book in that trilogy, it's, you didn't get a lot of release. It had very middle book syndrome, in my opinion. I don't know if I'm in the minority, but I do know people still loved that saga, though. Another one I'll talk about, this is potentially more in the vein of like magical realism. Well, not magical realism, because it's not magic. It's definitely still sci-fi in my opinion, but maybe more like Twilight Zone types, where sometimes it's not as science fiction as you would think, and that is Exit West. This is a story about what if doors existed in the world, and you could travel from one place to the other if you found the right door. So a door opens in Saudi Arabia, and it connects to somewhere in Canada. And that happens all over the world all the time, and no matter how many times you take control of these doors or try to bar them off, there are more doors. It basically destroys borders, right? And it is a story discussing immigration and what it would mean if the borders couldn't be controlled the way they do now. What does that mean for a refugee crisis? And I just thought it was really interesting. We read it for a book club, and yeah, it's a really good read, especially if you want... I think one of the benefits of science fiction is you can take a topic that's hard to talk about with the complexities of bureaucracy in our world and take away a thing, and let's discuss how we would handle it then. How would we handle mass immigration across the world in a refugee crisis that you can't control borders? What do you do? What is the humane solution? Or maybe what isn't the humane solution? And you follow this couple through this entire thing. And not only are you looking at the world as it evolves, you're looking at their relationship as it evolves. And if you can't tell, I'm remembering a lot about this book. I really liked it. The next one I'm going to talk about is Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. And I'm so glad so many more people are reading this now. Oh, that book is so not put downable. I was talking to Tati from Musical Tati about our first experiences with reading it. You read that first prologue or chapter, you can't put it down. I'm sorry, what? It's a story about, this book came out in the 70s and 80s, so it's a story about a contemporary black woman of that time who is periodically sent back to the antebellum South for these specific interactions with this white boy. She's like responsible for saving his life or something, and each visit gets longer and longer, and obviously being a black woman during slavery who is not used to the demands of that relationship. It's a very traumatic experience for her, and it's a very gripping story, and it's really good. There is a slow read of Octavia E. Butler's works right now being hosted by Tati from Musical Tati and Injiri from Onyx Pages, so I will link that down below. It is so good. If you haven't heard of Octavia E. Butler, thankfully more people are talking about her. She is an important author to read if you want to know the history of science fiction and where we are. She is so prolific. Well, was. Unfortunately, she passed away before we could get more. But yeah, so good. The next one I'll talk about is The Girl with All the Gifts. This is a very interesting take on the zombie apocalypse, and it's just a really fun, fast read. I don't want to talk too much about it because I think some of the things I really liked about it are definitely spoilers, but it's quick. I read it 2 or 3 days, and it's a 400-page, 500-page book. I remember it being thick. And The Girl with All the Gifts is a zombie who doesn't seem brain dead. And there's a couple children like that, so you're watching the scientists interact with these children and kind of try and teach them, but also it's a zombie apocalypse, so they're trying to also survive. It's a really interesting take. I really liked it. This one is for me more of a flash in the pan sci-fi. I still sometimes think about it, but I'm not going to reread it. I enjoyed it. I feel like the next book I'll bring up is not a surprise, but Jurassic Park. I read this 4 or 5 years ago. It's a great book. I actually can't remember much about it specifically, other than I thought it really was a good pairing with the movie. Because they both do some things, so they emphasize different parts of the story. So I thought they were a good pairing and didn't contradict each other too much. I liked the writing style. I thought it was good. I do want to read more Michael Crichton. I want to read The Andromeda Strain. Maybe not right now. And it was an author my dad always really loved. So Sphere and Timeline have always been on my radar. He's the author who gave us the concept of Westworld, but that movie apparently is very bad. So I definitely want to read more of his works. It was very digestible writing style for me, but I just haven't gotten around to it. Ooh, I actually do have the next ones of these. Wonder if I can grab all four. These are the Hyperion Cantos, and I think I have them out of order. Ooh, la la la, my mass market paperbacks of these babies. So, oof, I was cruel to the Rise of Hyperion, but broken spine. So this is the Hyperion Cantos, and the first one is Hyperion. I read all of these back to back. I binged this series. This one was the hardest one for me to read, probably, because this one's basically a short story collection, if you think about it. And it's kind of, people always compare it to the Canterbury Tales. So you have 7 pilgrims, and they are trying to go to this temple of the Shrike. I think it's of the Shrike. I don't know. Regardless, the universe is kind of ending. These people are just on a pilgrimage, and there's this Shrike who he's the most bizarre creature to ever exist in my sci-fi life. I really want a TV show for this because I think it'd be a really cool, like, horror sci-fi TV show, especially with these short stories. Not all of them have horror tinges, but a lot of them do. And so the first 2 I really like as a duology. I really like these 2 as a duology. And then I really like the other 2 as a duology. I don't like them all connected because I really love what happens in The Fall of Hyperion. But I do not like how things kind of feel retconned in this. Although I do like the new character sets we get in this. So I kind of think of them as 2 separate duologies. But I like them both, all 4 of them. I had a good time. So I would recommend it. I've been looking for a reread, and I have so many friends who are like, oh, I want to read Hyperion. I'm like, well, tell me when. I'll pick it up. So yeah, I think I actually first picked it up for a book club, because when I first moved to Boston, I met a bunch of people at a Brandon Sanderson signing, and then we all, like, formed a book club for a while before, like, you know, adult life. Keeping friends as an adult is hard. Alright, the next one I'll talk about is The Martian, which really do I need to talk about The Martian, but this is by Andy Weir. There's a movie based off it. It is the funniest hard sci-fi book I have ever read. And I read it in 2 days, a day. It was so captivating and good. It's a man on Mars whose team had to leave him behind, and he's trying to survive till someone can take him back home. And luckily he's like a botanist, so he kind of knows what to do. And that's the premise of The Martian. I think the book is funnier than the movie, although Matt Damon does a great job. The movie does expand on the world a bit, because the book is only the one character's logs and perspective, whereas the movie can expand and you can get the Earth perspective too. So, I don't know. I think you can consume both, but it's definitely one where the adaptation and the book are a little bit so samey that, like, I don't think you need both, but that's just an opinion. Alright, the next 2 I'm lumping together, and these are by Peter Clines, I'm pretty sure, and it's 14 and The Fold. These are, like, great, quick vacation sci-fi reads. They are engrossing, thriller sci-fi. You're given an interesting mystery to uncover. I was less impressed with The Fold than I was 14. Yeah, that's the name. But I think it's because The Fold and 14 had similar twists, and I didn't like that, and I had read them close enough to each other that I'm like, oh, we're not going to do something newish. I mean, I don't think that's a spoiler, because they are different enough. Because what I'm thinking of as newish is more of a homage. But yeah, I did like them both. Like I said, if you need a vacation, quick sci-fi read, thriller, those were great. I had a fun time with them. But like most thriller things, probably not exploring that again. The next one I'll talk about is Metro 2033. This is the book that the video game is based off of. I've not played the video game. I will not play the video game. It would be terrifying. This is definitely like more sci-fi horror. It's a translation, I want to say Russian, but I could be wrong. And basically, the end of the world has happened. You cannot live on land. Everyone's living in the metro. But the metro is also not completely safe. There are different toxins. You can become sick or die. It's a post-apocalyptic setting, and our main character, I think his name's Artyom, which if I'm remembering this right, I'm really proud of myself, because this was like 4 years ago. But he has to travel somewhere for a reason. I cannot remember why. So not my favorite plot arc of him traveling places, but in his travels you get to see different parts of the metro in that world, so that's kind of cool and terrifying. Lots of scary things. I started reading this on the metro at night. I would not recommend. So yeah, that one's one I read. There are more books in the series. I didn't continue it. I didn't think the translation worked really well for me, or if it did, it was a drier writing style than I wanted, and it was scary. So yeah, but it has a really interesting ending, I will say. I'm pretty sure my friend Ramsey from Rajathon has a full review on this, so I will try to remember to link that down below if you're interested in that book, because it has been a very long time since I've read that one. The next one I'll talk about is The Power. I'm putting this as sci-fi because that's what I do. I guess it's technically more like futuristic dystopia, which I still call sci-fi. I don't really know how the world works. But this is a world where suddenly women get glands that give them electrical powers. And what does that do to the world order? I'm sure you could guess. But it was a really fast-paced, quick book about that. I don't think it's as deep of a discussion as I would want about it. But I thought it was a great, quick read. Nothing too deep, like I said. I mean, you probably could write a book that's very similar. I don't think it is nuanced per se. But I liked the different angles. I liked that it was a very captivating, engrossing read. So yeah. Next one I've read is my first and hopefully many Ursula K. Le Guin's, and that is The Left Hand of Darkness. Also, I said the next one. This is in no order. I have no clue when I read any of these. I just made a list. But The Left Hand of Darkness is one of many Ursula K. Le Guin's book in this. I don't know what it's called, but she has a whole world of sci-fi books, and you can read them in any order. So I just read this one because it really interested me, because it's a planet where there is no gender. When the inhabitants of the planet want to procreate, they will choose a gender for that time period, but they never have to choose the same gender each time they go through it. They might have a preference, they might not, but on average, unless they are procreating, they have no gender. That type of world fascinated me. And it was a really slow, introspective story, and I really liked it, but I knew the minute I finished it that I want to reread it when I'm like 20 years older, because I'm like, I took a lot from it now with I think at the time I was 25. I want to read it when I've had more life experience, because I feel like it's one of those where I can relate more to the themes and the content when I've had more experience in life than I've had up to this point. I still thought it was really beneficial. I really liked the concepts, but it's definitely not plot-driven. It's very philosophical and thinky, which I do like in my sci-fi once in a while, so that was good. And then the next one I'll talk about is Irobot, the short story collection by Isaac Asimov. I have talked about the Foundation trilogy, and I read the first two of those before starting BookTube, but I've just recently finished it. But I think my favorite work by Asimov that I've read so far are the short stories in Irobot. They are fun little thinky puzzles that explore just the laws of robots and things. I just really liked it. So that's all I really have to say about that. I'm sometimes hit or miss with Asimov, because he's definitely more of a philosophical writer, like problem solving and deductive reasoning is a big part of the stories I've read so far. And that can get tiresome. I can't do it all the time. It's like how I can't read Terry Pratchett all the time for very different reasons. But, it's a very specific mode of reading that I just can't do always. So, yeah, these were a list of science fiction books that I read in the past 4 or 5 years or so before I joined BookTube that I think deserve to be talked about. And I guess I just want you to know that I have read Red Rising. I just don't talk about it all the time. I'm kidding. But I just wanted you guys, to know that I do recommend all of these books. If they speak to you, I had a good time with all of them for different reasons. And yeah, hopefully I'll probably do this with fantasy books and maybe historical fiction contemporaries, because I've read a lot of books in the past 4 to 5 years before I realized YouTube had BookTube. I'm only 27, but I have an old person relationship with the internet. So me learning about BookTube was a year ago. But yeah, that's this video. Comment down below any sci-fi that, you think I would like based off ones that I have read here. Or you can leave an emoji of whatever you think's a sci-fi emoji. It could be an alien or a technology thing like a flask. I don't know. I'll let that be your decision. Like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.